Hello and welcome back to Starting Steps. We're here after looking at the settings and kind of getting a feeler for those and understanding what they do. And now we're moving on to actually creating the game and making our player race. What a player race is essentially it is just your empire. It's who you're starting as. In this case, I'm going to kind of go through what those options are, what they do, and give you a general overview before creating the race, and then we're going to get started within the game itself. And I'm going to set up some stuff at the start of the game, and then the next episode after that will actually be running some time and beginning to play. So, at the top here, we can see that the race title. This is simply what you want to call the race. I'm going to call it United Terran States. And you then have a race short name. This is like an abbreviation. We're going to put UTS. This will appear on your system solar system view. This will appear on other stuff where you'll see population UTS or United Terran States, that kind of thing. You can then change the homeworld name. I'm going to rename it to Terra instead of Earth. And then you have these options down here, these 8 options. Non-player race means that this race will start as a non-player race, something you can't control. You don't want to be selecting this. Industrial. This is, as some older players who are returning may or may not know, it got renamed from conventional. This is now called industrial. And so you start conventionally, or you start industrially in this case. And what that basically does is that you start without advanced technology. You have to research everything from the beginning, and you essentially have no initial ship designs. You don't have to do any of the setup process, and you kind of just start from a very bare bones situation. I recommend this for newer players because it lets you explore things as they come up instead of being bombarded with a bunch of things you have to do at the start. It is technically a harder start, but for the purposes of learning, it is generally my recommendation. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to toggle that on. Next, we'll be toggling on in a second. I need to go over the rest of them. Next, neutral race. This is a race that can't fight. Generally, people might use this for role-playing a civilian population that doesn't interact with the player. Something like this. They don't take sides and they don't really interact with other factions, that kind of thing. Also assign tech points, ground force, and ship classes. Basically what they say, they are for trans-Newtonian starts, which is the difference to industrial starts. And they basically auto-design those forces for you without you having to design them at the start, which is what you typically have to do if you start trans-Newtonian. Home system, geo, and grav surveyed. That can help again if you start trans-Newtonian. We are going to be not ticking those, and I don't recommend you tick those either. Alright, so on the left-hand side, you can see your species. On the right-hand side, you can see your starting resources and assets. And in the top right, you can see your naming themes. And then in the middle, you can kind of see your flags and other stuff like that. So what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and look at the species side of things. So the first species you have is human. And these are all settings or all ideal temperatures and all these kinds of things for human survival, human habitation. The reason that this is important is that when you are colonizing worlds, terraforming worlds, going out there and putting humans on brave new planets, they need to have stats in regards to how they handle gravity, temperature, oxygen pressure. And these are the settings that affect them. This will then inform you, okay, I need to change this world to be like this to actually make it habitable. And that deviation is very important when doing that. Now, you can change these settings. I don't recommend it if you're new, but you can make a whole new species with whole different settings. The population density, growth modifier, research rate modifier, and factory production modifiers are all at 1, as humans are baseline in the game, essentially. If you adjust any of these, they will adjust significant gameplay aspects. Density modifier means how many people you can fit on the planet without you overpopulating it. So what overpopulation would do is means you don't grow anymore. So, Earth can have about 12 billion people on the planet. With that density modifier, let's say at 1.5, you could have 18 billion people. Population growth modifier, pretty simple. Just increase your growth rate as you tick that up, or you reduce your growth rate. Research rate modifier, that reduces the species research rate modifier. This is different to research speed in game settings. The game settings research speed affects all the all races, all non-player races, all of that equally. So alien races are also affected by that. This would only affect the human species. Then we have factory production modifier. Again, same thing. Makes you more efficient at producing things. I would not touch anything here. Then you have determination, diplomacy, expansion, militancy, trade, and translation, and xenophobia. Xenophobia and translation basically have to do with when you first contact alien races, how easy it is to translate their communications, and the diplomatic ease of actually engaging in diplomacy, essentially. Other races will have these stats as well, and that will affect how they approach you. Highly xenophobic races are going to want to murder you, essentially. Trade makes trade easier between races. Militancy, that affects how much your populations require protection. So they want you to build more military vessels, they want you to build more weapons, things like that. That's kind of what they want there. And then expansion. I forget exactly what this does, but it has to do with alien races. Same with determination as well. And then you have diplomacy. Most of these do not impact anything for human players. These mainly affect what other races view you as. So keep that in mind. On the right-hand side, we have population and all the other great stuff. Just officer graduation age. That's how late your officers actually graduate. You can change that. So on the right-hand side, we have population and stuff. Generally speaking, you want to leave these as default when you're first starting. But you start with 1,000 million, which is 1 billion people. You start with 2 shipyards, 16 research facilities, and 1,600 conventional industry. All of these facilities you see down here are trans-Newtonian. And what that means is that we don't yet have access to them, so we're using this much worse conventional industry. But what we're going to be able to do, and I'll show you that in later episodes, is convert that conventional industry, once we have trans-Newtonian technology, to these more efficient and better factories. Research facilities are how many labs or assets or installations you have to actually research things. So you can assign labs to different projects. Shipyards, clearly what they do, they build ships for you. At game start, for a conventional starter default, you start with a 1,000-ton naval yard and a 10,000-ton commercial yard. Commercial yards build commercial ships, which are like your freighters and colony ships, and military yards build your military ships or ships with military components. You also start with 1 ground force construction complex, a deep space dragon station, and a military academy. Military academies produce officers, scientists, and governors, and maintenance facilities, which I also forgot to mention, they maintain ships in orbit, and if you don't have them, then the ships will break down, and that is a problem, of course. Ground force construction complexes, they build ground forces, as we saw in the ground forces tutorial video that I just released, which you can go ahead and watch, and there'll be more ground force tutorials coming out. And deep space dragon stations are sensors that the planet has that can detect things around it, essentially. Then we have a few other things here, which is what would matter if you're doing a trans-Newtonian start. That has to do with starting tech and ship build points, and those things, and maintenance points and all the other stuff. And those things basically measure how good, so to speak, your start is. So if you have 100,000 tech points, that means you can have 100,000 points of research applied at the start of the game that you can then use throughout the game. Now, that's kind of an overall explanation. Let's catch our breath a bit and have a look over at the naming themes. So at the top here, obviously, we have our species. Then we have system theme. I'm going to be setting this to the Terran Federation, but you have so many different themes here for all of these categories that you can use. And you can even make your own themes, and I'll show that in a bit, probably in a different episode. We have class themes. I am again going to be selecting something pretty simple. We're going to go with class theme all the way at the top here. We're going to go with Terran Federation. Rank theme, we're going to go ahead and set that to United States. So class theme, that will affect classes of ships. System theme affects systems that you discover. Though if you start with known starts and you don't turn on use theme and known starts, this won't affect anything. And we have started known starts and I haven't turned that on. Rank theme is the ranks you have, so like lieutenant, colonel, things like that. I'm going to be setting that to UK actually because I'm from Britain. And name theme, we're going to go ahead and set that to English. And you have a bunch of names, all sorts. You can, Warhammer names, Ancient Egyptian, Bajorian, Battlestar Galactica, all the kind of stuff you can think of. And it's relatively easy to add your own. Then we have change flag, change image, change hull, change station. These will change all of these corresponding things. I'm not going to open these now because they would go into my file explorer and I don't really want to show that. But basically what you do is you open those. You can then select any of the pre-made options, or you can add your own, and they're simply just 512 by 256 JPEG or PNG files that you can add. But we're just going to go with this for now. And there you go. You have your race, and you can hit create race. And this will actually generate the game. There we go. So we're now in Seoul in this new game as the United Terran States in the year 2050, January 1st. And here is the solar system. So, why not catch a break for a bit? We're 11 minutes into the episode, and you're probably now realizing, holy shit, there is a lot to do. There are so many settings here. What the hell am I even doing? Well, we're going to do this relatively systematically. There is going to be a lot of things that I'm not going to be able to educate you on immediately. But my biggest advice is try things, look around things, ask questions, and go, okay, I want to do this. How do I do this? Look it up. Go to the Discord. Ask questions. Put it in the comments below. How do you do these things? Give yourself, write down what you're trying to learn. Because Aurora is a relatively simple game when you actually understand the way it works, so to speak. So it's simple in the fact that you just hit button, do this, do that, but there is a ton of knowledge that you need, and that's where the complexity comes in. And as simple as that sounds. So this is what we call the tactical map. This is the map you'll be looking at most of the time, if you're not in a different menu. And what this map does is essentially show you where your planets are, these things are. It lets you see your fleets and all the other good stuff, and it again gives you a hub to hit different buttons that you'll need and increment time, most importantly. So we will have a look now at two things. First off, if you use your middle mouse button and you scroll it back and forth, you can scroll and zoom in. Second, if you hold down shift and you drag your mouse, as you can see here, you can measure out distances. So we can see here that Venus is 135 million kilometers away from Mercury at the moment. On the left-hand side of your screen, we have a lot of options and tabs, which do all sorts of things. These are all very useful. I'm not going to go over every single one. I'm going to give a quick summary. All of these options here turn off if you see orbits, planets, fleets, or other things just by checking them on or off. So if I turn this off, on, planets can see, planets can't see. Very simple. Events, you'll want to toggle this on. This will show events on this screen. You can also access events in the event window, but we'll get to that in a bit. Sensors, fire controls, weapon ranges, all those things we'll need for fleets. We'll get to that eventually. Geosurvey points is the amount of points needed to geosurvey a planet. Again, I'll explain that more when we make our survey ships eventually. You can set surveyed bodies here. You can hide fleets. You can hide escorts. There's a bunch of sensor information here. For example, we can see Earth sensors right now. And mineral concentration, so you can see which planet has minerals. Green is colonized. Yellow is minerals. And white is colony. That's what this means, essentially. Then you can look at asteroids with minerals only. There's a ton of options you have, basically. And you can set these up however you like, but the main thing you want to have on is events before we do anything else. So I turn that on. Then we have a bunch of other information. Contacts. These are, again, fleets you may see. You can turn these off to show them or not show them. Minerals. Once you start surveying and finding new deposits, you can go here. As we can see, Terra has these minerals. And for reference, you start with these kind of randomized, but you start with every mineral in the game on your home world because it lets you actually do things. Artifacts, this is for aliens, ruins and stuff. Don't worry about that. Survey sites, this is for underground surveying of additional deposits you can potentially find. Waypoints, you can set waypoints. That lets your ships move to specific points in space and fire missiles at specific points in space and things like that. Min text is just a shortened version of minerals. And then you can see all bodies in the solar system here relatively easily. And yeah, and then your military, you can see all your military vessels, your naval ships, all that kind of stuff. At the top, you can switch your player race, and over here you can switch which system you are in, which is very useful for actually looking through a multi-system empire. Okay, let us move on to some of the other windows. So what I'm going to do is, because I don't want this episode to go on forever, I'm going to go ahead and do what I would do at the start setup for a conventional start. There are still going to be a lot of questions you're going to want to be asked and all that kind of thing, and more episodes will come out to answer those questions. But in the meantime, if you're trying to start a game, again, head over to that Discord. So the first thing that I do is I'm going to go to the colony summary tab, which is here, in the economics window. I'm going to go over to governors, which are the people in charge of your planet, and they provide bonuses. I'm going to hit automated assignment, and I'm going to assign a governor and change this population growth modifier to production. This will give a 15% production bonus to anything we produce on the planet when it comes to industry. And so I want this governor assigned. The second thing, we currently have 1,600 civilian or conventional industry, and we're going to use them until we get Transutonian tech to build military academies. Military academies get us more officers, scientists, as I previously stated, and we're going to need those if we want to rapidly industrialize. So we're going to do that. Shipyards, we're going to do two things. I'm going to increase the capacity of this shipyard to 7,500 tons. I'm going to increase the capacity of this shipyard to 100,000 tons. The reason I'm doing this is this shipyard will build survey vessels. This shipyard will build big freighters and colony ships in the future. Research. I'm going to assign as many research people as possible to Transutonian technology. I'm going to use matching scientists only because that will let us find the scientist that specifically is good at researching this category of construction and production, as other categories as well. And when they're good at a category, they get a 4 times multiplier to their bonus. So he has a 5% bonus, so that means he has an effective 20% bonus. And we can see that modification number here. You can max get this base bonus to 50%, which can give a 3 times bonus mod total. With the rest, we're going to go to defensive systems. I'm going to grab the guy that is good at that, and we're going to start researching conventional composite armor. Finally, with our rest of our research, I'm going to go to logistics. I'm going to have actually a look around. I think power and propulsion. We're going to go ahead and put someone on power and propulsion, and we're going to start researching bigger engines and lower engine mods for our future freighters. With that done, I'm going to go ahead and head over to our officers, which I'll be closing out this window. We'll be going up to this window here. And we are going to be setting up some things. First thing we're going to do, hit automate assignments. The game will also assign officers to ships and fleets. So that's what we'll be doing. The second thing that we will be doing is we are going to go over to our scientists. I'm going to grab the construction and production scientist. Or actually, no, we're going to grab the system fire control scientist because he's who I have free. We're going to go here and we're going to assign him to the academy. This will give a bonus to generating more scientists and scientists of that specific type. Further, if you ever want to change the field of a scientist, you can do so at the bottom here. What this will do is it will reduce that bonus by 75%, but will get them into a different field so you can start training them up in that field. So that's always an option. There's a bunch of other things down here that are relatively easy to understand, like assign, unassign, retire, auto rename, award medals, things like that. These are all our officers, by the way, as well as our governors down here, and we can even see people who have died and retired. So, moving on. Let us now head over, once we've done that, to the race window, or the British flag over here. We're going to go to Academies. We're going to go ahead and select 5 on the quality versus quantity. What this means is that we will have less number of crewmen and junior officers and officer graduates. However, those that do come out will have a higher training level or experience in comparison to others, and that will improve the capabilities of our ships. Considering we're not going to be building many vessels, this makes a lot of sense to do. With that done, we are now going to head over to the events window because I want to show this off. So you can hit the events window here, you can hide events, you can do all sorts of stuff, you can even color things. But there isn't too much to now do besides increment time. Now, I'm not going to do that because incrementing time forward would actually start the game off properly. So what you want to do, so these are increments of time. We'll go over that real quick. This automates turns, which means if I increment, I'm going to do this. If I increment 30 seconds, it will keep incrementing those 30 seconds for a long time. This is save. There is no autosave in Aurora. Make sure you save. That is very important. This turns on Space Master. Don't worry about this for a while. This is game settings. Manage things here. This is minerals that you can search for and understand once you've surveyed worlds. This is sector window. Don't worry about that for now. This is your technologies, so you can see what you have researched. This is your intelligence of the alien races. This is race comparison window between races that you player races that you know. And this is medals. You can award medals. They're an RP thing. They're pretty fun. This is ground forces, or the AT-AT. This is turret design. This is missile design. This is naval organization. This is where you put your fleet and understand things. I'll be doing a whole video on this window eventually because it's a big, important window. This is creating components or researching components and projects and designing them. This is a very important window. We'll be explaining more about that in the next episode. This is class design, one of the best parts and biggest parts of the game. And again, we'll be getting to more of that in the next video. Then we have wealth and trade, which comes up to this tab again, economics window, and that has to do with your wealth. I will say this, wealth only becomes a problem when it goes negative, and then it reduces your production capability. Try and keep it positive no matter what, because it is a pretty big penalty if you do go below 0, if you go negative. That's research. This is your minerals, minerals tab. That's your industry tab. There we go. And this is your home tab for your economics window. Cool. With all that being said, what I recommend is keep playing around with the buttons, understand what they do, figure things out. And remember this, the game is a marathon. The game is about logistics, and what you need to do is focus on establishing yourself within your systems and coming up against adversity, trying new things. The first 10 games you play of Aurora are going to end in failure. You want to play a game, come up against an issue, restart, try a new thing, try things, and just learn. And then eventually, after 10 or so games, you may be able to actually start a proper game and really get into it. With that being said, I will see you guys next time. I hope you have enjoyed the video. Next up will be a Ground Forces tutorial, hopefully coming out today. And after that, there will be the next video after that will be another video in this series. I hope you have enjoyed. I'll see you later, and thanks to all the members that have stuck around. Goodbye.